This is History for the Reckoning, a podcast that dives deep into the history that's hard to hear but critical to understand. Season 1, American Concentration Camps, the story of World War II Japanese incarceration. Welcome to the first Addenda episode. I'm your host, Spencer Ford. In these shorter episodes, I'll try to clarify things from the last interview or share more content that was cut for time. As the main episodes come out, please reach out to us, History for the Reckoning, through Instagram or Substack and ask. I'll try to answer some of your questions or comments on the next Addenda episode. This week, I'd like to share a piece of George Takei's interview that we cut for time. First, a short story about a bookseller, then George's reflections on his father's feelings about America and democracy, even after their illegal imprisonment.
I always put Vroman's bookstore in Pasadena on my book tours because the man who was the manager there during the war was an amazing person. He was not only supportive of Japanese Americans based on the issue of justice, but he risked his life. He drove out to Manzanar every month on appointed day with a car full of books from his bookstore and donated it to the people there.
Wow.
And on one trip from Pasadena to Manzanar, rednecks on the way there took pot shots at his car.
Oh.
And he had bullet holes on his car. Made it to Manzanar and donated that book. The people at Manzanar said, "That's it. He's not going to come back again." Right. But the next month, on the appointed date, with the bullet holes in that same car, he came back and donated those books. I became curious about our imprisonment when I became a teenager. And I went to the school library to find books on it. Nothing. I went to the downtown library. Nothing. The only person I could go to was Daddy, but he was busy all the time. But after dinner, I sat down with him and I asked questions of him and why that happened to us. Why did you do that? What he did? My father really appreciated, in many ways, my asking him questions like this, because my brother and sister did not. And I learned from my father about due process and how America had failed when America was swept up by hysteria. And he said, that's understandable. But Pearl Harbor was a horrific bombing. Thousands of people were killed. 8 major battleships were sunk. And that terror swept across the Pacific and rolled across America. All of America was terrified. And we happened to look just like those people. And America, across the continent, didn't know too many of us. And it was easy for racism to be tapped by people who wanted to exploit that. And politicians are dependent on people and what they think. And he said, this is a country of laws, but those laws are very fragile. And if you don't have people that believe in those values, despite the hysteria around them, America is in trouble. And so he said, at school, I want you to participate in all the life of the school. If there's a fundraising campaign, help out. So I volunteered for Red Cross packages, putting them together. The Red Cross headquarters wasn't too far from us. They elected me junior Red Cross president, and that put me on the student council, and I like debating with other kids.
Sure.
And when the opportunity came for me to run for student body president the following year, I decided I think I'll run. And I like being popular. And so I ran, and I turned out I was popular. I won. And so that led to other things. And I think, all the pressures that he had in camp was what made him think about democracy. Here were people that were angry and frustrated and prone to violence, and other people who were cowed and would go any way, or other thoughtful people who wanted to do what they could to keep the conditions down. And he had to be there, essentially being a politician. He took that experience, and I think my father was an amazing person to have gone through that experience. And having experienced all that, he seemed to appreciate the optimistic ideals, which completely faded with the hysteria. And he realized hysteria is the enemy of a democratic optimism. It's based on optimism that's very fragile. And so we, the people, have to participate to keep it true to what its ideals are. But ideals are very fragile.
Thank you again to George for sharing his and his family's story. Now, each Addenda episode will end with a recommendation of another podcast we encourage y'all to check out. This week, we'll ask y'all to check out the Wild West Extravaganza. The Wild West Extravaganza is a weekly podcast featuring true tales from the Old West. Gunfighters, outlaws, Native Americans, and frontiersmen. The very real-life people and events that shaped this iconic period of American history. The host, Josh, has covered everyone from Billy the Kid to Jesse James, and even lesser-known figures such as Dangerous Dan Tucker, Stagecoach Mary, and a skunk-fighting Arizona rancher named Ed Scarborough. And yes, that was a literal skunk, not a euphemism for bad guys. Whether you're looking for an in-depth series on legendary characters like Doc Holliday, or even the true stories that inspired great works of Western fiction, such as The Lonesome Dove or Blood Meridian, the Wild West Extravaganza has you covered. So saddle up for a journey back in time and discover the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Old West. Once again, that's the Wild West Extravaganza, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you consume audio. And with that, thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to reading your questions and feedback for the next Addenda episode. Season 1 of History for the Reckoning is made possible by support from the JACL Mount Olympus chapter, as well as generous financial support from the Takahashi Family Foundation and the JA Community Foundation. The music was produced by Patrick Coffin. If you want to support the show, follow us on Instagram at History for the Reckoning. Sign up for our newsletter at History for the Reckoning on Substack, where you'll also find the show notes for each episode, or support us financially through Patreon at patreon.com/historyforthereckoning.